Good morning. It's Wednesday, November 6th, about 6 a.m. Central Time. I had to use an alarm clock for the first time in years, and I'm drinking that iced coffee black here this morning. So, looking at the overnight price action in precious metals, they are weaker as markets digest the results from the election. We expect to see increased volatility today as stop losses are hit. Capital is being redeployed and reallocated into other different sectors and asset classes due to the agenda of the Trump administration. So looking at the overnight price action, and I want to break it down to you and think long term on a lot of these positions. So you start off with the dollar index up 1.71%. The dollar index is going to weigh in on many commodities just naturally because of the inverse correlation. As a result of that rise in the dollar index, you got 2-year treasury yields bumping back up to 4.24%, the 10-year yield at 4.46%. These are big moves. Bonds are down almost 3 handles here at the moment, trading at 115.17. So really weighing in on a lot of the commodity space. You have the S&P 500 up dramatically, up 2% right now as equities rise on a pro-growth, low-tax agenda with modest fiscal expansion. The Russell 2000, which represents the small caps, having one of the largest one-day rallies ever. You go to the crude oil market, down about 1% at 71.15. We may see some of the geopolitical risks. They may actually decline with the Trump administration. Remember, some of his rhetoric where he said that he would end the war in Ukraine in one day. Also, domestic production could increase in a relaxed regulatory environment. So these commodities are all going to adjust a bit with the new administration. Getting into the precious metals, gold down $35, trading back into that zone, that 2750 down to 2700. Trading at 27.14 last and falling within that pocket support, that 2700 floor, 2708 being the September high. So in that range, you're going to have some pocket support and you're going to have some buying come into that market there. Remember, gold over the long run, because of the tariffs, is bullish in its nature. That's why I want you to think long term on a lot of your positioning. So you get into the silver market. The problem with silver and why it's being weighed in just a little bit more, down 2%, trading at $32. It did break below $32, but as a recovery in the gold market occurs, I believe throughout the session, you should see silver futures lift off of those lows as long as copper doesn't break trend support. So silver futures, remember the clean energy initiative that the previous administration had, you're going to see some of that come out of that market. So you'll have people redeploy out of clean energy and into more traditional energy type sectors. So that also that hard stance on China and the correlation of the copper market is really what sent silver lower in the overnight session. Now copper taking the biggest hit, down 3.45%, trading at 432. Trend support right in the 428s to 426 level. That increased tariff stance on copper, on China, is what's really weighing in. But remember, you got to think long term on these things because of the fact, what was China doing? They were waiting to see which candidate comes into the office in order to redeploy more stimulus measures, and we expect larger stimulus measures with a Trump administration coming in. Again, China, the largest consumer of copper and one of the largest consumers of silver as a product that goes into other units here and are resold out. We are technically the largest consumer of silver, but it's as a result of many of those end products that are produced overseas. So again, inflation should rise on this type of agenda, and you want to be long inflation. And when you go long inflation, you go long many of these commodities, which are now coming back on sale. Remember, many of you were waiting for an entry point on these things, and I believe we're getting close to many of those. Now, Bitcoin, with the Republicans having the larger than expected majority in the Senate, and it's too close to call in the House, the possibility is there for a Republican sweep. So we could see dramatic inflows more into the crypto space. You've got Bitcoin up 7.8%. You've got Ethereum up 9% here in the overnight session. The comprehensive regulatory changes could take place under that Republican sweep, and the new administration could cancel that SEC accounting rule. It's SAB 121, which prevents banks from providing custody of digital assets. In May, the Biden administration vetoed that type of resolution. So with this break over 75 $125,000, you could see $100,000, $125,000 Bitcoin. Sounds crazy to say. So in many of these assets, what you want to do is get smaller in certain spaces and increase exposure in other spaces out there. And Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies like Ethereum that we trade on the futures side could be some great assets to implement in your portfolios here. Now, your support levels, I did volatility adjust everything with the overnight range. On the gold market, 2707 key level support, we bounced off of that range. And these aren't hard numbers because of the increased volatility. 2690, your level of support below that, 2672. You get to silver, it was 3169. We overshot that slightly on the downside, 3157. Below that's going to be 3116 and 3062. Those are all your support levels. Now, excuse me. One of the problems we do have today, there isn't any economic data that could come out and support these markets or provide increased volatility, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So markets are just going to focus on agenda, emotions, and feelings rather than economic data that's coming out, which is what I watch mostly. Tomorrow we'll start to get a lot more economic data. We'll also get the statement on the FOMC. Now, looking at the probability here, it's a 96% chance that the Fed cuts rates 25 basis points, but we might go to the next meeting out where we're starting to see a bit of a shift here to them keeping rates more unchanged at the December meeting, being a bit more cautious because they want to see how inflation plays out and how some of these agendas factor into the market. Now, again, your key level of support on the gold market, this is from a trend basis. So many of you follow me on a trend trader type of trade where you're in this kind of for the long haul. We are going to break down to a neutral stance most likely in the gold market, in the silver market, and barely hold neutral stance on the silver market. So where these have been bullish trend for quite a long time, like if you look at the gold market, it's been in a bullish trend since last August when it broke out to the upside. It was August 12th was when we got that thrust up here in that breakout of the consolidation range. Now we're coming back down and we're breaking down to a support level where we go neutral. What generally happens in the way that I position here is if traders are not into that market, this is where you use the stance to enter the market and go back into that previous trending direction here. So the markets that I'm going to focus on here today, any kind of correction in Bitcoin, the gold market, I would look at new entries on those markets. Keep an eye on the dollar index, keep an eye on 2-year treasury yields, and keep an eye on U.S. equities, because if U.S. equities start to roll over, it may also trigger a wave of selling in many different commodities out there. We are seeing natural gas prices rise as well because of the fact I believe we were like a liquid natural gas exporter under the Trump administration. But again, I got to review a lot of the notes here, not only in my head, but back in old notebooks that I had from the Trump administration on different trades that worked. That's why it's important to keep a log of a lot of different things here and a lot of events that have occurred, especially larger events that have occurred in the trading space. So you got any questions, give me a call, 312-858-7303. Your intraday trading, I'll give you some of these numbers. I can refresh them throughout the day. So remember, futures option trading does involve risk of loss, may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.